So today I'll be doing a book versus movie video. It's my first one. I chose 1408. So it's the book versus the movie. Even though technically it's a short story, I made it into a movie, so I went ahead and did it. Plus, it's one of my favorites. So I've been seeing a trend on YouTube lately of Valentine's Day videos, and I briefly thought, should I do one? Should I include Valentine's Day and hold off on 1408? Then I thought, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So now on with the video. There's a little note before the story begins from Stephen King, and I really love it. I'll read it to you guys. What I really meant was the part that matters. But hotel rooms are truly creepy places, don't you think? I mean, how many people have slept in that bed before you? How many of them were sick? How many were losing their minds? How many were perhaps thinking about reading a few final verses from the Bible in the drawer of the nightstand beside them, and then hanging themselves in the closet beside the TV? In any case, let's check in, shall we? Here's your key, and you might take time to notice what those 4 innocent numbers add up to. It's just down the hall. So the brief summary of it, the short story version, you follow Mike into the hotel. So he goes into Hotel Dolphin, and he hears about this room 1408. You go with Mike, and he's talking to the hotel manager, Olin, and he's begging him to not go into that room. He's saying, please, don't do it, don't do it. And Mike writes these books of haunted places. He doesn't really believe in them, though. He stays at all these famous places, writes books on them, nothing ever happens to him. And Olin is trying to describe it's because he doesn't believe. So he goes in without a care in the world, thinking I'll be fine. He's making it up. It'll be fine. In very Stephen King fashion, things start happening to Mike. And so you're in it with him. You're experiencing all these scary things and all these past deaths that he's heard of. All the ghosts are still there. And so in the movie, it covers all this too. But there's a little bit more to it. So I actually did the reverse thing. I watched the movie before I read the short story. And in a way, I'm kind of glad because I don't know how you guys do it when you read, but when I start reading, there's always this generic type look that I give a guy when I start reading until I read an actual description if the book gives one. And sometimes I get mad if it's not mine. I'm like, no, that's not how he looks. He has brown hair and he's kind of tall and basically like John Cusack. So it was perfect that John Cusack actually played him in the movie because if I read it first, that's kind of who I would picture in my head anyway as Mike. Someone that looked like him. So it worked out great for me. But in the movie, since it was originally a short story, they had to fill out all that time. You do see a lot more of Mike. So in the short story, there's no mention of any family members. He does mention a brother briefly, but you don't really know him. You're just shoved into this experience with him without any kind of backstory. But the movie gives him one. And so it's hard for me to say if I like the movie better than the short story because of that, but I enjoyed learning about Mike. So in that way, I think I do like it better. I mean, I love the short story, don't get me wrong, it is really worth reading. But you do learn a little bit more about him and seeing his experiences and seeing that even though he's an author, he's not a very famous one. And in the movie, he does kind of have a family. I don't want to get in too much about that in case you want to see it for yourself. But there is a big difference in the ending. So for those of you that haven't read the short story or haven't watched the movie and don't want to hear this next part, I'll go ahead and change the screen so you know when to fast forward and when to continue on. So here comes the comparison. So in the book, there is a fire like in the movie, but he kind of sets fire to himself. He starts burning up his shirt. He's thinking this is the only way he can escape is burning himself. And it does help him escape. Someone finds him in the hall and helps him. But in the movie, you think he escapes. You see him leaving, and you think, oh, good, he's in the hospital. Everything's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. And then you realize he's still stuck in the room and he's dreaming. And then it progresses from there. And at the very, very end, I've heard different things, and now it's kind of blown my mind. I don't know what to believe anymore. But I heard that at the very end, when he's listening to his recorder back and he hears his little girl, I heard that that can also be a dream, that he's still in the room. And I always looked at it as he escaped, that it was a happy ending. But now I'm not too sure. Now I'm thinking, is it more twisted and morbid than I originally thought? So I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it now that I've done this. I reread the short story recently, but the movie is always kind of engraved in my head, so I feel like I didn't really have to rewatch it to do this video. But now, since I have a different perspective on the end, I'm thinking maybe I should go back. What I love about the short story versus the movie is you're in the office with Mike and Olin longer than in the movie. I mean, they had to make room for everything else in the movie, so they couldn't really focus on that. But I really love the conversation between the two of them in the short story. You really get a sense that Olin really doesn't want him to go into that room and is trying everything to stop him. So I really love that part. So both of them are good in their own way. I recommend reading it and watching it just because the movie stemmed from the short story. It is enjoyable. It's about 50 pages long. What I wanted to do with this one is go over the whole book with every short story. You can tell that it's pretty big. There's 14 dark tales in it, as the cover says, which is actually kind of perfect that I do 1408 by itself because that leaves 13. So maybe one day I'll go over story by story in that book, excluding 1408 since I'm doing it now. But I did get that one originally just for 1408. So the other 13 stories were like bonuses. So if you've watched the movie and were looking for the short story, it is in that. It is in Everything's Eventual. And I remember a while ago, I can't even dig this up because I can't remember what interview this was. But I do remember seeing an interview of Stephen King from his house, and in the background on one of his walls, you see the movie poster of 1408. So I know he was really proud of it just by that alone. So I recommend both. If I left anything out or if you have any questions about anything, you could go ahead and leave a comment and I'll reply back. I just didn't want to give too much of either one away for any of you guys that are interested in reading it and watching it that haven't yet, that maybe you're just trying to get a feel for what it's about. I think why I was drawn to this originally is I love, love, love ghost stories. And the hotel just seems so creepy to have one in. And the fact that it's an old hotel, that just adds to it. It's so creepy, and it's supposed to be kind of like in the middle of everything. So that is kind of cool. It's different from The Shining in a way, where The Shining was in the middle of nowhere, but this is in the middle of everything. And still, things are happening. So you never know. You never know what's really going on. But that is my comparison. See you guys next time. Bye.